Good morning. Welcome to the Student Midwife Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Henderson. I am a student midwife with a school called Southwest Tech. It's based in Wisconsin. I live in southern Indiana. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of traveling for me. I've got a preceptor out in Wisconsin too. So my summer is going to be full of driving back and forth between southern Indiana and central Wisconsin. I'm just making this podcast because I want to connect more with other student midwives. I'm realizing that would be a really fun thing and a good thing for me. I talked to another student midwife that I ran into randomly at the playground yesterday, and we had such a good conversation. I just realized that I really want to start having conversations with more student midwives and people that are not just in my school, like maybe in other schools, or going through the PEP process, which is it's kind of like the old-fashioned apprenticeship model more than the traditional school model. You keep track of your own stuff, how many hours you've been with a midwife, how many hours you've gone to births. I don't know exactly what it all entails. I know you have to prove that you've also done your own studying and reading on different topics. But I just think it would be fun to interview some different students maybe on here and just have a conversation with other student midwives about the things we like to talk about, because let's be honest, we talk about things that aren't usually polite dinner conversation, let's say. And I mean that politically, not just and ethically, not just talking about the gruesome things or the really scary births we've seen or whatever, which is obviously not polite dinner conversation either, but also the political things, the things that keep me up at night. I want to get other students' opinions on some of these things and talk to, and not just student midwives. It'd be fun to talk to maybe doulas, birth professionals of all kinds, doctors. I'd like to have a conversation here. So I've been kind of longing to create something for a while now. So this is my attempt at that. So it's an early Sunday morning here in my yard. I'm drinking my coffee, and we're going to see how this goes. I'm going to start with a book recommendation. I think I'm going to try to have a book or movie recommendation in each one of these too, because it's fun to also see what people are reading, what they're talking about, what they're learning from. My book recommendation today is called Kid Gloves. I actually just found it in Goodwill, and I grabbed it because of the cover, obviously. The midwife in me was like, what is this? And it is a graphic novel. And it's very interesting. It's about a woman's journey through first infertility, and then she finally gets pregnant, and then she ends up with some very serious complications. Namely, preeclampsia was the main thing. Actually, hers went into eclampsia. So, because her doctor didn't listen to her. So it's about all of that. I don't want to spoil any more of that for you, but it's a very interesting social commentary on, doctors not listening, and why our healthcare system is basically the way it is. And I think she does a really good job of just creating a piece of art that describes that process and what it was like for her personally. And as a person that's had preeclampsia a couple times myself, I really understood what she was going through with this book. And she has a lot of other things in here too about some of the historical and social reasons that women aren't listened to when they're pregnant, and all the ways that we are kind of looked down upon, and how we don't get good education in our health classes in school. I've got a little wispy white hair flying away. I gotta bring that back down to earth. So yeah, it's a really good book. I would recommend it. It's called Kid Gloves, 9 Months of Careful Chaos. It's by Lucy Kinsley. So yeah, especially if you like graphic novels, that's a format that I really enjoy. I would say check it out. Or if you just anything birth, if you're interested in that or interested in the injustices of our healthcare system, like I would say check it out. It does a really good job talking about all of those things. So I really enjoyed it. I couldn't put it down. I read it in, I think, 2 days when my kids were asleep, you know, stolen moments when we're mothers, how we have to get a flashlight like we're kids and, you know, in bed again, hiding. Well, if you share a room, I live in a tiny house, so I share a room with my kids. So especially then, you have to like plan your reading times very carefully. You don't have a room to just close the door and go read. So I plan my reading times for like doctor's appointments. I keep my books in my purse, even my school books, and read them when we're waiting somewhere, doctor's appointments, maybe a WIC appointment, whatever we're doing, or, you know, just we're at the DMV or we're at, you know, whatever, getting the car fixed. So yeah, that was a good book. The other thing I want to talk about is, let's jump right into, why is it such a mean girls club to become a midwife in America? That's what I was talking about with this mom that I met on the playground the other day. Because she and I both, you know, run into the mean girls club thing, where, I mean, what I mean by that is that you quickly can get really iced out of birth circles if somebody doesn't like you. I don't know. And even at school, I see like it's very cliquish, and I hate that it's like that. I try to be friends with everybody in my class that I can be. Some people make it really difficult. So I'm not friends. I'll admit I'm not friends with everybody. And, you know, sometimes personalities, you're just not gonna get along, but this should be a profession about love and empathy and care, and we are people that have a lot of love and empathy and care. So how does it become a mean girls club? That's what we were talking about yesterday, me and this woman. And I think it really boils down to midwifery has become, I hate to say this because I'm really glad that it's become professionalized in some ways, but it really has made it more of a profession and less of a calling, if you know what I mean. And that makes it really hard to not have the mean girls club clubbiness when something becomes a profession, because then it adds a layer of capitalism and competition to this calling that we never really wanted in there in the first place. I think that you'll agree if you read books from like the 80s or early 90s even about midwives, you'll see that it was much more of a welcoming environment back then, and especially like the 60s and 70s too, of course. Back when, you know, we weren't a profession. And of course it was, because everyone was breaking the law to practice midwifery back then. So if you were ballsy enough to break the law and be a midwife, I guess you were automatically in the group. And people were more willing to help each other. And, you know, it just sounds like, from what I read and from what I remember, because I've been around midwives my whole life. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to be a midwife in my teens and early 20s, so I took lots of nannying jobs with like different midwives and stuff. So I've been around the profession for a long time, even when I wasn't necessarily attending births myself. I've definitely been around midwives, and I can see that the culture has shifted dramatically in the last, I don't know, 15 years. And I think it's because of professionalism, and that really sucks, because I don't think that's what people envisioned when they started pushing for the legality of midwifery, you know? So, yeah, like if you read books from like Ida May's time, or even later, even into the early 90s, it wasn't like that. It wasn't as much of a cliquey profession. It definitely welcomed people with open arms. Like CNMs would work with CPMs, and Like, there was much more of a collaboration of sisterhood, or at least that's the way, I mean, sure, people are writing about their experiences from the past with their rose-colored glasses on, remembering the happiest parts of working as a midwife, probably. So some of the memoirs I've read probably are only mentioning like the best collaborations and the ways that the sisterhood really did work. And they're probably leaving out some of the cattiness. But I do think that midwifery has gotten more catty as time has gone on. And I think it's because of the professionalism. And I'm wondering how we can soften that. Like, how can we keep it professional? Like, have standards for midwives to live up to? Or hopefully, I mean, I don't even care. Like, I am fine with, like, the renegade midwives that aren't choosing to be licensed and are still illegal. But I am choosing to be a licensed midwife, and I'm wondering how we can just kind of, like, let go of some of that cattiness. I don't really know what the answer is. I'm hoping other people will chime in, because I don't know how to fix it at this point. It does feel very broken. And I know I'm not the only one, because, like, talking to that woman yesterday at the playground, she was saying the same thing. And, you know, I'm on, you know, Facebook, different midwife groups, and I hear this all the time. Like, why are other women in this profession so mean to me? And yeah, I've wondered that myself. And even when we gather at my college at Southwest Tech, it's supposed to be a time of, like, collaboration and learning and getting together. And often it feels very, I do have a lot of joy with the women I hang out with, but it feels very cliquish, you know? And I don't like that. And I wonder what we can do about that, because ultimately we all need to work together. The maternal crisis in this country is very bad. It's kind of out of control. And a lot of people are saying it's up to the midwives to solve this crisis. And I kind of think that is true, because in rural places especially, hospitals are closing more and more every day. Who is going to be there for these women? But if we're going to be a bunch of mean girls, like, how can we work together and collaborate and make things better overall, you know? I'm trying to look at it big picture wise. I'm always looking at things in the big picture. And I think maybe it starts with me. I mean, I can't rule out that I haven't been a mean girl myself to some of the other midwives in the area. I try not to be, but there's certainly probably ways I could reach out and be more friendly and helpful to people. So I'm gonna work on that. I hope others can work on it too. Yeah, there's a stark difference. If you watch documentaries about midwives in other countries, you can see that they are way more into collaboration and the sisterhood of it. I watched one about Brazilian midwives not that long ago, and it was beautiful seeing how they would get together, meet at each other's houses regularly whenever they weren't at births. They were giving each other massages, taking care of each other. I feel like for the long time, if you're going to be a midwife for the long haul, we need that community. We need to be taking care of each other. And we need midwives for the long haul. We don't need midwives that come and then go. We want women to really grow into this profession and become wise old sages, don't we? I mean, isn't that what we want? So we need to be more gentle and more kind to ourselves and each other. That's the other thing I was talking about with this woman. She was talking about how it's a very, it's not a sustainable career option. And if we're going to be professionals, which we are now, we have to think of it as a career option, not as just a whimsical thing we do with our time, because it takes all of our lives, really. It takes away from birthday parties, it takes away from Christmases, it takes away from our kids, you know, hanging out with us and things. So we need to treat ourselves with more grace and kindness, and not, you know, this workaholic, work ourselves to the bone or work ourselves to death for the good of other women. I understand it, because we are in a maternal crisis here in this country. So women are very empathetic often to other women, and we will break ourselves to help other people. It's kind of like wired into us, because we're mothers and we're nurturers, right? So it's kind of wired into us. But I think it's got to stop. I think that this comes from the nursing model of the world of care. It comes from the medical model. where residents, doctor residents are expected to like stay at the hospital for like 48 hours at a time, just like working themselves to death, especially during their training. Like, they pride themselves on how little they can sleep and still work and things like that. And midwives kind of fall into that cultural trap. And I think it's not good. It's not good at all. It's not good for us. It's not good for our bodies. It's not good for our minds. And it's certainly not gonna like create the kind of culture that we want and the staying power that we need. If we're gonna have very competent midwives in this world, in this system, we need women that stay for the long haul, because that's how you like pass on your knowledge to other generations. That's how you acquire the kind of wisdom that you need to be a good, competent midwife in this world. So that's just stuff I'm seeing. I don't know. It's really gross how quickly, as we've professionalized, like things have gotten really kind of ugly between midwives and among midwives and students too. And it's kind of like the nursing environment. I've been through nursing school too. I have an LPN, and I think midwifery school now is like very much like the nursing school environment, where it's like the weakest get discarded and thrown to the wolves, and like everybody just kind of like picks on the girl that they perceive as like the weakest member, the weak link or whatever. And sure, we need a process to weed people out that aren't going to make the cut, that maybe don't have the intelligence or the ability to withstand the long nights and the ability to like do all that hard work and still like be intelligent and, make those decisions even on no sleep. We need a way to like weed them out, but I don't think cruelty and meanness and like sort of cruelty and meanness is the best way to put it. I don't think that's the best way to weed people out of this profession. What it's doing is it's driving out the very empaths that we want in the midwifery profession. We need empaths in this profession. So yeah, that's what I see is like the girls that are very empathetic and very kind and gentle and generous with their time and generous with their lives, and that would actually make very good midwives, are being driven away by people that are more focused on career paths and like, I don't know, just like the catty mean girl stuff. There's a difference between being a girl boss and being a mean girl. I think the two can exist simultaneously. I don't think you have to be a mean girl to be a girl boss. I've seen that. I've seen women that very much have like a thriving midwifery business and they're not a mean girl. So I think it can be a thing. It can be a thing. And that's what I'm here to say. You don't have to be a bitch to be a girl boss. Sometimes it helps. You definitely like get more stuff done sometimes because we have a world, because of the patriarchy. Like, are we remembering that we don't want to feed into the patriarchy, and the hierarchy and all of that stuff is from the patriarchy in the first place? Like, I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like, can we somehow separate ourselves, still be excellent midwives, still be a profession that's professional, and not buy into the patriarchy and that hierarchy that like creates this system of like people really picking on the people at the bottom. That's all I'm trying to say. So yeah, let's switch it up for a minute. What can we talk about next? I really like the way midwifery is going in some respects, though. I see a lot of collaboration between doctors and midwives lately that might not have been possible before when we weren't as professionalized. At our school, last time I was there for test outs, the majority of people that were testing us were actually female doctors, which I thought was fantastic. Some of them were becoming midwives at the same, like had become doctors and were now becoming midwives. Some were just OBs that support midwifery and want it to thrive, so they'd come to our school to test us, and I thought that was fantastic. I liked being tested by doctors because that shows a certain level of, professionalism that has come, and a certain level of prestige that has come to the midwives. And that is unheard of in our history. Like, we've always been kind of the, the witches on the fringes, if you will. History shows that predominantly those witches that were burned in Europe and in America were midwives, which is why a lot of midwifery knowledge has been unfortunately lost over the years, and we're trying to regain a lot of it. And thankfully in America, we had a longer history with the granny midwives than some places have had. So Black women really kind of preserved the knowledge of midwifery for us in this country, that other places maybe didn't get preserved. So I'm grateful for that. A lot of our herbal remedies and things like that we use is directly because of the hard work of the granny midwives, like holding on to that stuff. And Indigenous midwives too. They definitely have a history of passing those traditions down much more than white people did or could, or it's just not in our culture to keep track of those things, I guess, or to pass it down. So I'm grateful to those Indigenous, the Black and brown midwives that paved the way. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I felt really good being tested by doctors because it shows a certain level of collaboration, and it shows a certain level of we're being trusted by doctors more. We're moving into that professional sphere. And that to me feels good. And it also, I had one doctor tell me when she was testing me, like, you guys are the future. Like, this is how we're going to solve this crisis in this country. And I think she's right. I also felt like I told her this. I was like, this is a lot of pressure to put on me. You understand that, right? Like, I lie awake at night thinking about how are we going to solve the maternal health care crisis in this country? Because I was almost a statistic myself. And some of it was because I don't have good connections. I had just moved to Indiana when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I didn't have connections. I didn't know who I should go see. I didn't have advocates for me. And it shouldn't be like that. You should be able to move to another place in the country and still get excellent care. But if you don't know the right people, and you don't have, and I didn't have money either, I was on Medicare. So if you're poor and you don't have the right connections, it can be life. You can lose your life in this country. And I definitely almost did. My husband doesn't want me to have any more babies because he says, we can't lose you. That's the reality in a lot of places in this country. And that's what drives me. That it really is what drives me in this pursuit of this goal. I want to be there for somebody when they say, I don't know who I can trust. I don't know who to go to. I have these issues. I have these weird, symptoms. Can I talk to you? And hopefully I can be there for those people that don't know where to go, who to talk to, or they can't get anyone to listen to them. Like the woman in this book. They can't get anyone to listen to them about weird symptoms they're having, which her symptoms were very clear cut. I don't know why the doctor, he was probably just overworked, honestly. He didn't have time to hear what she was saying. Her symptoms should have been like very easy to pick up on, like red flags, like something's happening with this woman, but they didn't. For whatever reason, she ended up seizing before they even figured out, oh, maybe there's something happening here. So yeah, and she ended up in the ICU like more than once from one pregnancy. Like she lost like a good chunk of her blood, like a whole bunch of things happened anyway. But you should read the book. It's really good. But what I'm saying is my desire is from a place of having experienced that almost cataclysmic, I could have died type of scenario. And part of it was because my first pregnancy, like I said, I was poor. I couldn't get insurance right away when I moved to Indiana. For the longest time, like I was waiting to get insurance. So I was like halfway through my pregnancy before I got any care at all. Other than, what I knew to do myself, which was like eat a good diet and you know, some herbal remedies and things that I knew. Drink lots of water. Like I knew, you know, some basics myself, but I couldn't get any health care. And I had to go into the local Medicare office and say, this is what's happening with me. You better put me on insurance today or you're going to have a death on your hands. And that should not be, it shouldn't be the pregnant woman's job to do that in order to get insurance. And miraculously, later that day, they called me and they said, good news, you have health insurance now. So they could have given me health insurance all along. So that really bothers me. And that is why I'm trying to get into this line of work. It's a passion that goes deeper than just like seeing cute babies and, you know, loving moms, which I do. I love babies. I love moms. I love all that stuff, but it goes much deeper. I want to save lives. I want to save lives. And I know I have the intelligence and the strength to do that. I just have to keep plugging away at these stupid classes. I have to be honest, like I'm taking some prerequisite classes at my college that I don't even know why I'm taking these classes, because like I have a background in studying maternal health, a bachelor's degree from Goddard College, which is no longer a college, but it was a legit college, in studying poverty and how it affects maternal health. And I don't know why I'm taking these like basic 101 like English classes when I've written basically a book for my other degree. Anyway, I'm not going to focus on that today. Don't need to get my blood pressure up, but yeah, we have a real crisis on our hands. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like we need to work harder at being kind to each other so that midwives don't burn out right away, because I guess we are the answer, unfortunately, or fortunately. It is a lot to put on us. And midwives, unfortunately, throughout history have had to be the stopgap in healthcare when there was nobody else. We've always traditionally been that. And we're not paid like doctors, even though we're doing the things that doctors really should be doing. Like we're stepping in where doctors are not available. We're stepping in, you know, to meet the needs of clients that can't get doctors to listen to them. So yeah, it feels a little shitty, honestly, that this is falling on us. It shouldn't fall on us, but it is. Here we are. So what are we going to do? Midwives have always traditionally been the women that stepped in and did the work that no one else wanted to do. So here I am. I'm willing to do that work, even though it's work that maybe nobody else wants to do. I don't know. I've been reading some books by Terry Pratchett lately, his series about witches. Tiffany, I forget her last name, but she's a witch in this series. And she does that kind of work that midwives traditionally would have done. She doesn't just catch babies. She's like bandaging, you know, the villagers' legs when they have ulcers on their legs. And she's, you know, visiting the widow woman that needs her fingernails clipped or whatever, and like bringing food to people. Traditionally, that was the work of midwives. Like we did all that stuff. We visited the people that nobody else wanted to go. Nobody would go near, you know, the dirty people, the people with the lice in their hair and the, you know, that needed a good bath and their beard cut or whatever. Like we did that work. And I don't mind doing the down and dirty, the grimy work, if that means saving lives. And I think that's really what we're here for. Like, that's the calling I hear. I live in a place where, you know, healthcare is lacking, to say the least. I experienced that myself. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's like I experienced the lack, so I know what needs to be done. I know the gaps that exist. And I don't know, it's not glamorous work. That's the thing. Like some people get into, when I was like 14 and I first started dreaming about being a midwife, I thought it was glamorous work. And I think that's what people think at first. And then they get in and a lot of people are like, yuck. A lot of this is not glamorous work. A lot of it is like advocating for people, maybe calling the local Medicaid office and saying, hey, look, my lady needs health care. She's going to die if you don't help her. She needs blood pressure meds ASAP. or, you know, like bandaging the wounds that no one else wants to see, like going and visiting the people out in the middle of nowhere that like nobody wants to deliver their baby because their house is in rough shape and they got, you know, rodents and whatever, you know, like we do that work, we do the hard work. And I didn't realize that when I thought midwifery would be this like glamorous thing, like, you know, at the time I only knew like really old hippie midwives, real groovy ladies that I was like, I looked up to. And I didn't realize that there was a lot of hard work and a lot of like really gross work and a lot of just boring work, honestly. And that the day-to-day of a midwife's life there's nothing glamorous about it. So why get mean girl about that? We're taking on the work that nobody else wants to do in this country. I don't see a reason to be mean girl about it. We're not doing anything. We're not princesses. This isn't the work of, you know, of princesses. There's a singer, I forget, I think her name is Betsy something. She's like an Irish singer. And she says something like, my grandmother says my feet are too large for princess shoes. And I love that because I understand what that means. It means like I am not a precious person. I am willing to do the dirty work. I did hospice nursing for a while. If you want to talk about dirty work, there's nothing glamorous about that either. It's hard. You're cleaning up a lot of puke and poop, diarrhea. You're talking to people that are delirious with dying, the process of dying. You're talking to families that are delirious with grief and sadness, and also fighting over the people's will before they have even passed away. It's really disgusting in a lot of ways. But I tried to bring dignity to it, you know? I picked flowers for the dying and I would hold it to their noses so they could smell a flower one more time before they passed away, you know? I brought them little stuffed toys so they'd have a little animal to cuddle. You know, one man was like, I need a kitten. And I said, I get it. You want something soft to hold before you die. So I brought him a little kitten stuffy. That was the best I could do. And his wife was kind of like, what the fuck? Why are you bringing my husband this thing? And I was like, he's dying, man. He said he wanted something soft to hold. So I think she thought I was trying to flirt with her husband or something. Very weird, but whatever. People can think whatever they want. I'm going to do the work with as much dignity as possible. And yeah, birth is a lot.